place to be is living free in Tennessee.
Welcome to Living Free in Tennessee, where we talk about building the life you choose on your terms. Today is Monday, May 5th, 2025, and this is episode 1032 of Living Free in Tennessee. And it's a Monday show, so we have a standalone Nicole show today. And as you can hear, I sound like me again, so I'm super happy to be back in my own body because, it's weird not having your own voice, but that is what it is. Hope you enjoyed my little kazoo solo. That was me celebrating that I can sing again. We had a awesome concert yesterday with the Master Singers of Cookeville, and there were 3 other choirs with us, and we sang some awesome music. They did different. Each choir did some of their own pieces, and then we came together all on stage, about 200 singers, and sang a work called Illuminari. I did get the link to that today on YouTube, so if you follow me on social media, you will have seen that, and I'll probably put it in next week's email to everybody. So we'll just see how that goes. I am being careful today with my voice, but I am back, and it's kind of nice to almost be able to sing all the way again. I was able to sing the concert, and then I just warmed up today, and my voice was better than yesterday. So it's getting a little better each day. But it has made me think about what I do when I speak at events. So I'm heading out again this week. I'm on the road a lot in May, heading out again this week, and we're going to see if I make it through Midwest preparedness without losing my voice. If I lose my voice there, then I have a feeling there's some like vocal training of the talking training type. I don't even know what kind of person you see for that, but that's what we're looking at. So I don't know. Anyway, today I'm kind of fired up because it's after the spring workshop, which was pretty great. And then yesterday's concert went awesome. And I just wanted to share stories, the people, late night brainstorms, like some of the stuff that happened at the spring workshop, including sea sponges. Sea sponges happened at the spring workshop. So if you've never been to one, this will give you a little bit of a flavor about what happens at the workshop aside from all the awesome sessions. Of course, we'll do all our usual segments, 2 tales from the prepper pantry. I don't have a frugality tip this week. So Margo, if you're listening, time to put your head to that again, I think, or tell me I missed one because I don't think I did. Anyway, also, if you, the listener, have a frugality tip you want to send it to Nicole at livingfreeintennessee.com, or just go to livingfreeintennessee.com and click on the contact link. Before we jump into our first segment of today's show, I wanted to talk about our featured event of today's show, and that is the Wild Foraging Walk that's going to be over at Strong Roots Resources on May 10th. Go to strongrootsresources.com to find out more about that. It's $20. Kerry does a great job. He was doing those at the workshop. And if you've been interested in seeing what the wild edible things that grow around you look like, that's a way to do it. It's in the Knoxville area if you are in Tennessee. And he does a few of these this year. If you go to his website, you'll see, I think he has 8 or 10 listed. So if you're planning to tourist in this area, like, see if you line up and can go to one of his things. That'd be a fun way to meet people in the community while you're on a trip, plus learn about wild edible plants. I also want to thank 2 sponsors today. Our first sponsor is EMP Shield. EMP Shield helps protect your home from surges and lightning strikes in power. Check them out at empshield.com. If you want $50 off your device, you can get that by using the coupon code LFTN. And just know this, they're the only company I know of that if their device works, it breaks. That's not unusual for a surge protector. But you know what happens if it breaks? You can send the broken unit in. You can send them $50 and they send a replacement one back to you. I don't know anybody else who does that. They also have a guarantee up to $25,000 if their device fails to protect your equipment. And they're also the only company I know who does that. Check that out, empshield.com. I'll be seeing a lot of those guys in person at the Midwest Preparedness Festival, which is this weekend. Oh, well, it starts Thursday, I believe. Well, I mean, maybe you can start getting there Wednesday. I don't know. I'm not getting there till Thursday night, but sessions start on Thursday. It's Thursday, Friday, Saturday near Lawrence, Kansas. So we're on the road again. And then I looked at the weather. And the weather says that there's lots of rain in the future, but not necessarily at that event, but totally between me and that event. So this morning I took the time to rain X my windshield and my back shield so that I can have an easier time driving in the rain. Okay, second sponsor to thank today is Discount Mylar Bags. Toby over at Discount Mylar Bags has a discount for you if you're a member. So if you're a member, log in, get your discount, use the discount. And then also he makes great deals by buying things in bulk and passing on the savings to you. Check that out at discountmylarbags.com. He's been supporting the show since ever, basically. So, you always help the show when you let the sponsors know that you heard about them here and you give them your business. And if you're buying Mylar bags anyway, why not get the best price you can find and good quality and good advice from Toby over at discountmylarbags.com. Now it's time for our first segment of today's show, which is Tales from the Prepper Pantry. This is where we talk about storing what you use and using what you store. And I've been in a big pantry transition, as y'all know, for over half a year. When we ripped the roof off the pantry, pulled everything out of it, filed it into all these different places all over the holler. And yeah, that was chaos. I have a lot more sympathy for people who live in tiny spaces and have to have a million little cubbies for where they put things and keep track of that, because I've been blessed with enough space here that I can put my pantry stuff in major areas. And it's a lot easier to keep organized that way. So I was pretty happy when the Prepper Pantry got back to the point where we could start storing stuff in it. But it was like a week before the spring workshop, where I have a lot of workshop related stuff that we pull out of a different location. Plus the food that we serve there is not the food I eat. Like we have a lot mashed potatoes and stuff like that. That stuff is not stuff we eat on the regular here. And so I ended up pulling out, like putting everything together except for one shelf, which I just dedicated to the workshop. And now we're in the transition away from the workshop and back into organized, but it's a lot more usable. I did Rain-X today. I walked out to the Prepper Pantry, got my Rain-X, knew where it was. It was like a minor miracle. So we're still clearing that out, but also I did not resupply anything for a while as a part of this transition. So we're going to be doing a round of making sure the basics are on hand, things like, laundry detergent and paper goods and all of that. That round of things will be happening. And I know there's all sorts of rumors of tariffs and embargoes and craziness. The thing about having a pantry is that stuff doesn't worry you as much for a couple of reasons. One, most of the stuff that gets involved in these things and like might disappear is stuff, if I'm honest, I don't necessarily need it. Toilet paper being a great example. I could live the rest of my life without toilet paper. I just like using it because it's easier and less yucky than using a rag, for example. But it's something we were dealing with before toilet paper existed. And a lot of these items that could be out of stock are not needs. They're nice to haves. Now, we view them as needs because we've worked them into our lives, but when you have a pantry, you have a cushion, right? If you're managing your pantry right, where you build up a savings account of supplies that you actually use and then use those supplies on a rotation, you keep them fresh and you keep them rodent free and bug free, and you rotate it through. When there's this or that not here, you're like, I can go another 6 months. I've got 6 months to figure it out if it looks like that thing's never going to exist ever again as long as we live. And it just sort of levels it out. Plus, you end up not taxing the system when everybody's trying to get something, whatever that something is. And I suspect that as the whole tariffing situation goes on, we may have some ups and downs and sidewayses to deal with, like things you wouldn't have even thought of. So I think it's a really good time for you to take a good hard look at your pantry and ask yourself 3 questions. 1, am I storing what we actually use, or am I storing what we used to use? And then 2, am I storing what other people used to tell me? And then 3, what areas does it look like I have too much or not enough? And just sort of adjust what you're doing, right? Like I just handed off, I think 5 buckets of rice and beans sorts of things, because we don't eat those here, to somebody who has just moved and doesn't have any of those stores at all. And I was like, well, this is great. You can actually use them. You actually will use them. And I don't need to be storing this here because I could use that space for things that we do use, things that we do eat, like meat, you know? So, anyway, that's sort of the philosophy behind the prepper pantry. I named it the prepper pantry in 2016. And I went looking for any other references to the word prepper pantry before 2016, could not find one. So I would love it if somebody else could find it. I thought it was an original thought, although there's no real original thought. And now I'm noticing people are using the term prepper pantry all the time, and they're using it to refer to beans and rice storage and stuff like that. No, it's more of a homestead pantry approach where I had to have a pantry because we eat seasonally, we eat what we grow here, and then augment with other things. And what that means is that there's a time of year where stuff flows into the pantry more food wise, and there's a time of year where we go use it up, right? Right now we're on a inflow time. So of course, then the next thing that's happening in my pantry is I'm going to be auditing all of the canned goods in the month of May because canning season is upon us. I will start canning probably with pickles. Really should plant my cucumbers, probably with pickles or pickled beets or something of that nature. And then we'll flow into, peppers and tomatoes and anything else, green beans. Of course, there's like the epic every year I got to do 50 jars of green beans. Well, okay, so last year I reached my goal of green beans. And guess what? I still have some left now and I don't really need them. So I actually canned too many green beans. I think partially maybe we didn't serve as many at the Springs workshop as we usually do. And that's sort of in that formula. But also, we didn't eat green beans as much because I did a segment of carnivore this year, and I may go back and do another one because I felt really good doing that. And that means we just didn't go through the green beans. But green bean is one of the big green vegetables we eat in the winter, especially if I'm not doing an indoor lettuce growing operation throughout the winter. And that's, with the meat and whatever else we have stored. So that audit is definitely happening so that I can make plans for how much of what to can for the year. I didn't can much salsa last year, but I had enough salsa left over from the year before that we made it through. And I ended up with a boat ton of tomato sauce left so far this year. So I think I'm not cooking with as much tomato sauce as I have been. And I don't know what that means for next year canning. We'll just have to see. I think it's that I didn't do as many crock pot roasts this year. I was doing a lot of sous vide roasts or Romer top roasts, and those don't have jars of tomato sauce in it. And I did got everything canned, so it's there. And canned food lasts a couple years. So this is just part of our normal rhythm here at the Holler Homestead. I am pulling all of our road food for Midwest preparedness from the freezers and the storage. And Ma Sauce and I are going to sit down and just talk about what that's going to look like. And then based on that, I will see if I think what I'm storing in the pantry works, because I have a lot of road trips this month. And what I'm noticing I want to quote unquote buy are cured and dried meats, which are really handy for travel snack, and they don't need refrigeration a lot of times. Yeah, shelf stable stuff. Which begs the question, can I make more shelf stable stuff, or should I just, source it? Like I sourced these really awesome salamis. Some of it's made out of lamb. And if I can make that out of our own lamb, we have a lot of lamb meat. So we'll see. I'm noticing that my voice is sounding strange to me, and I'm wondering if I don't talk right. What is going on here, man? Okay, so if you guys hear it too, that's fine. That's why I'm pausing a little bit. I was like, is it the way I actually talk? Like I'm supporting it. I'm talking a little quieter now, but it was getting a little hazy. So I don't know. It's a little weird as a singer to be in your 50s going, I guess I don't know how to talk anymore. And I've talked and talked and talked as a teacher and all sorts of stuff. No problem. So you guys are going to hear me verbalize about that as I go forward. Okay. We are planting a much smaller garden this year because we moved it from up the hill to down the hill. So balancing that with how the pantry is going to work is interesting. it's time for succession planting. So I'm putting beans under broccoli plants today. And it's a little cool for beans today, but we'll go back up next week. And I want to get them in the ground before I leave town so that when I can come back, hopefully they'll be thinking about germinating. And then I can, at the right time, whack the broccoli plants out of there and open up some light for them to really thrive. The fennel is doing awesome this year. I actually just harvested some fennel wispy leaves for our salad. We're almost done with lettuce. And I don't think I'm planting another round of lettuce because I want to get into some other things. We have longevity spinach to transplant. I've got sweet potato slips to put in, tomatoes, peppers, eggplant, and I think a few other herbs that have been rooted. And then I'm going to be guerrilla planting random sweet potato slips all over the holler just because I have a whole bunch. Like, I ordered 2 bundles. I don't know why I did that, but I got a lot. And they're awesome. I'll talk to you about that vendor on a different episode. So I guess other than that, I actually successfully grew broccoli this year. So I'm pretty happy about that, but not enough to store. So if I had gone to the farmer's market this weekend, I probably would have been able to buy some from farmers. And that's always a good way to do it. Next up, we have the weekly shopping report from Joe. And this is what Joe has to say. I made the trip to Food City for a couple bags of flour and Meow Mix and Walgreens for the goop I put in my eye at night so it doesn't dry out. Only the first Tuesday in the month is Walgreens Senior Day when grumpy old men and women get a discount. So that's why they went on a Tuesday. For our usual trip, weather gave us a clear stretch of the heavy rains. So most people must have decided to wait, and there was little traffic. Dollar Tree was first. They're finally out of big non-carbonated monsters. I was the ones I was getting. But there was plenty of other choices. Stock levels throughout the store looked good. Sonia had been able to find some craft items there lately. We also went to Hobby Lobby for some acrylic paint. We didn't walk around the whole store, but we looked at other stock. I didn't see empty sections anywhere. Let's see. They were normal busy. So here are the prices. Home Depot, a 2x4x8 was $3.85. Aldi was last, and we found everything we wanted. Bread was $1.39. Eggs, $4.97. Whole milk, $2.92. Heavy cream, $5.29. Orange juice, $4.09. Butter, $3.49. Bacon, $3.99. Potatoes, $4.39. Sugar, $2.99. And flour, $2.35. With 80% ground beef being $4.59. Untainted regular gasoline was $3.59 a gallon. I actually got a bunch of ethanol free because I went to Camden and back last week, and I got to drive right by my favorite ethanol free gas station 2 times, not 1 time. So I was like, okay, I'm stopping twice. I'm sure my car was super happy with me. Next up, we have Operation Independence, because there's no frugality tip this week, where we talk about building local ongoing revenue into our lives. And there's been something going on in the background. I've talked about it on the show a little bit, but I had a good talk with John Pugliano after our spring workshop. He was there for a little bit longer. And it helped bring clarity to me about some of the focuses, because I could go many directions with holler roast and other things. And we've been looking at some land opportunities in the area. And so I just got to talking to him about that. And so I'm still sorting out the details, but this is one of those moments where I'm standing at a crossroads where I can go to the right and work on this land project, which includes a lot of the original vision of the holler while also having ownership opportunities for people and rentals. And it's a whole package thing. Or I can go left, stay traditional rental route with my focus and just focus on building my own wealth and continue to do my best to build out the holler into the event center and gathering place that it's been becoming for years. So I am inclined to go right now. And as a part of that, I'm putting together projections and concepts and all of these things. At the same time, Alan Booker was at the spring workshop talking about some of his projects that would overlap with my vision for what we're doing, what we would do if we got our hands on some acreage nearby. And So that's going to be rolling out. I'll start talking about it as it takes more form. The reason I'm not just like going, hey, check out this project is it's not the kind of project that you just say, hey, we're going to do this like shared community buy thing because there's legalities around that. Plus, I want what I became keenly aware of this year is that I I feel called to create the locus for community here. And I have the whole time I've been here, but it's been getting stronger and stronger and stronger. But I also regenerate best alone, which means if my house is the locus, then there's people at my house. And like right after the workshop, losing a cat and then taking the 6-hour drive to and from Camden, I was probably just one little tick away from getting sick, making myself sick from stress, and I hadn't had a chance to just regenerate, right? And then I had this concert coming up and no voice and was trying to get my voice back so I could actually sing. So I was kind of looking at how we have things set up, and I was like, having another place where a lot of the gathering happens would not be terrible because then if I needed to go home for whatever, I can go home for whatever. So, and with that in mind, I think the kind of community we're talking about isn't like, dancing naked around the fire or whatever. I don't even know how to explain it. Not that that would be what we'd be doing, but more of a people having the place they can go and also having the place where they can gather and being able to just decide how much they're exposing themselves to as far as togetherness. So it's not really a community in the sense of a lot of community living situations where you're like every night is dinner and it's a potluck and blah blah blah. More of a neighborhood, which is a word that Amani and River use for their project. It's like we're making a neighborhood, like you own your place, but you're part of a community, and we have these shared food growing projects that we work on, but also your house is your house. And I like that a lot, right? I think that's a nice approach. So those are my thoughts on that right now. With that, it is time for the main topic of today's show. And that's the behind the scenes look at the spring workshop. And I really like to call this one like, why not take your shot? Because that's the question I always have to ask when people are like, man, that looks so fun. I wish I could have been there. Well, why didn't you come then? Right? Why not take your shot? The opportunity comes every year for this event, and you could just do it. Like you can decide this year, I'm going next year, and then it's done. So I want to pull back the curtain today a little bit on what makes the spring workshop special at Living Free in Tennessee. It's not the agenda. Like everybody wants to see the agenda, see what time people are speaking, see what the topics are. It's not those sessions, although the sessions are great. And everybody who spoke at the spring workshop did an awesome job. I learned something from everybody. I had to go back and watch the recording of John Pagliano on one of the sessions because I missed one session. But that's not what makes it unforgettable, and that's not what changes lives. It's about being around a community of doers, people who are willing to build their dream. They're willing to adjust their dream based on what they learn about themselves as they go, and they're willing to help other people do the same thing. So these are some of the unforgettable looks of just little random things that happened at the spring workshop that I was like, oh, that's nice. This is fun, right? And we're going to start with one of my favorites. Something like this happens every single year, right? Glenn's rum. So on day one, Glenn was there and he had little tasting cups and he had a bottle of rum and he went around to everybody, people he knows, people he didn't know. He'd be like, hey man, want to try some rum? And then he pours you a little taste and he talks to you about where the rum is from and what the taste is and what he thinks about it. And he listens to you. And, if you're not a drinker, you're not excited about the rum, right? But it's more than the rum or the Merlot or whatever like one year he was like, hey, want any Merlot? It's like, you hear this voice saying that. We always laugh about that. That's Glenn's classic line. what he's doing when he does that is he's sharing something he's passionate about with people at the spring workshop. And it gives him an entree to talk to him about different things. So he's learning he's learning about you. He's getting to know people he hasn't met at the workshop. He's catching up with people he's always known. Glenn has been at every single one of my workshops, and he has been that element. And we've done formal tastings with him. But I really think the way it's morphed into that casual, like, guy with a shot glass, like a collection of plastic shot glasses and whatever he's tasting, it it's something I look forward to every year. It was memorable. It was something I had never tasted before. And that's what I mean when you're around a community of doers. He's figured out his how to share a passion with us. But also he talks to people who don't drink rum along the way. But you get to catch up with Glenn every time because he does his rounds with that. So that was definitely one of the highlights of the workshop. Another highlight I understand were the carnivore Scotch duck eggs. And y'all, the food at the spring workshop was, I think it was the best year of food we've had. We've had some good food. This year was, I think, the best recipes. It was so good. In fact, we're putting a recipe book out to the people who were there in case they want to cook some of these things at their homes. And it's not your standard workshop fare, right? Like a lot of workshops, it's like sandwiches for lunch and whatever, chicken baked for dinner, and I don't even know, chilies and beans and rice and I don't know what all. But a lot of what you see happen at gatherings like this is that people go to the restaurant supply store and buy a lot of pre-made things and then serve them. And it makes sense when you're feeding that many people. There's a lot that goes into pre-cooking everything like we do and cooking as much from scratch as we can. And the truth of the matter is we don't always get 100% there either. I actually bought mayonnaise this year. I did not make mayonnaise for the event, but we did make salad dressing with it. But that means that, it wasn't the homemade mayonnaise salad dressing, for example. In former years, I have bought scalloped potatoes at the store. This year, we made all the potatoes from scratch. And because we do that, the quality of the food is better. And then when I have found a fun recipe for me during the year, I try to fold that into the spring workshop, which is why the Scotch egg thing happened. Now, will I ever do that again? I don't know. It was actually more work than you think to make that many Scotch eggs, but they also turned out great. Like I could pre-make them, I could freeze them, we could defrost them, we could cook them, and they were fabulous. And that's what I look for in workshop food. So they may be back. We have a whole list of things that are on the keep it list. The Oktoberfest chicken was fantastic. The homemade bacon was fantastic. This is one of the things that a lot of people would go to that and say, I can't, but we are a network of doers. And so we did it. And it wasn't just me. It was Kiri and Glenn and Lynn and Angie and Oxy all working in the kitchen to make sure we had better food than you get pretty much anywhere else. The next highlight of the workshop was Alan Booker measuring the bricks of plants that Nicole Sauce was growing. He did 3 fabulous presentations, and they are live. I streamed everything live on YouTube that I could stream. And one of the things he talked about was just the nutritional density of food and how to measure it. How's your soil? We're talking about soil health. And he keeps talking about using a refractometer to measure the bricks, which is like the dissolved solids in your plants. And I was like, well, it's my first year of the garden, so I'm sure I'm not going to score great, but I happen to have a refractometer here. So let's check it. He's like, oh, I'll go get my kit. And he has like a garlic press where you macerate the leaf and then you put it in the garlic press and you put the drop on the refractometer and you look at the refractometer and you get a number. And so I took a leaf from a new garden bed. I took a leaf from the healthier bed in my aquaponics system. And then I took the unhealthiest leaf I could find. And we looked at those, and I was not expecting to score well, to be frank, because it was, I mean, it's literally my first year with this new garden and new soil and all of that. So that leaf from the new garden this year was a 5. Jack's like, "Good job, Nicole." Alan's like, that's way better than, most people's gardens, and way better than the grocery store. He goes, "And when you get to a 6, that's when the aphids start leaving your leaves alone." And so he was both able to compliment me on the quality of my vegetable while also telling me I was growing aphid food in a very empowering way, which I thought was pretty funny. But he's right. My goal is to get more and more nutritionally dense food. So that was that highlight of the thing. And now he also mentioned that I should be doing it, checking my dissolved solids at the same time every day. And he said, you may find that your measurements are a little bit different. So he says, like, right after the dew comes off the leaves at about 10 in the morning is when I like to check. So I haven't started that cycle yet, but I'll start doing that as we just develop our soil here. The next highlight was Patrick Rorman's precision strike. Patrick didn't even know I saw him do this, but I saw him outside with Jack. And the thing is, when you get Jack Spirko and Patrick Rorman together, chicanery erupts. And chicanery is part of what makes the workshop awesome. So he was out there, and Jack was like out there with a racket, like whacking wood boring bees, the carpenter bees, because it's carpenter bee season, and we like to have an open season on carpenter bees around my house where they like to bore into the wood. And I see Patrick out there of MT knives with a knife in his hand, trying to whack a bee in half with it. And the knife he had in his hand was my one-of-a-kind kitchen knife that I had handed to him to sharpen. And as a matter of fact, he did get the bee, cut it in half with my knife, and then he sharpened my knife. I was very sad I didn't get out there in time to tell him, "You break it, you buy it," because he would have found that pretty funny. But yeah, he got a bee while it was flying with my kitchen knife. And the good news was, had he broken it, he could have replaced it because I bought it from him to begin with. It's a really awesome knife. Okay, another fun highlight. Emily Zanotti Skiles, who nobody really knows who she is until they've been to my workshop, but you guys should know who she is. She's doing on a city lot. She's put together a plan where they grow their own food, or a lot of their own food, by optimizing space and choosing plant varieties. She analyzed what the family likes to eat, so she did it the right way. She's growing things they actually eat, not just things other people tell you should grow. And she talked about how she came to that conclusion as part of her session. But she also got really fired up after going on a wild edible walk that Carrie Brown did, and went home. And she has a set of twin boys who I think are 5 or 6, and a daughter who's like 3, I believe, is the approximate age ranges. I could be off by a year somewhere. And so she tells the best stories of what the hijinks her kids get into, because her kids are like actively involved in this whole process. And she shared the knowledge she got from Carrie on the wild edible walk. And next thing she knew, they were in the backyard with this, because she told them about the cure for bee stings. Not cure, but like to alleviate pain of a bee sting, you can use plantain, right? So she showed them what plantain was, because of course there's plantain in the yard. And next thing she knows, they're chewing up plantain and spitting it at each other. So that was a fun one. It turned into a backyard ammo situation among children, but what better way to grow up than spitting plantain at your siblings? Plus, we're raising a next generation of herbally remedy empowered kids, which I love. Anyway, The next highlight for me, this is one for me, was the swim spa greenhouse brainstorming session that happened on day one. Alan got there just in time for that. And he came up with an awesome plan for how one would do a greenhouse. But then we all looked at where the swim spa was, a greenhouse over the swim spa, right? Then we looked at where my swim spa was. People came to me with different ideas throughout the weekend, and I realized something really important. One, I really need to bury some electric lines on my property, and that has been the plan the whole time, but they're in the way of doing anything over that swim spa because there is a guy wire coming down that's holding up the pole, and it's awful close to my swim spa, and if I want to build anything over the swim spa, it's in the way of anything I'd want to build. And the other thing is that I'm not 100% sure, as much as I thought it was a good idea to put the greenhouse over the swim spa, that is in fact the best thing to have over the swim spa. And if we had not had the brainstorm, I probably would have just gone like rhinoceros ahead with putting a swim spa in. And then I would have maybe regretted that decision. So I have a temporary solution for covering the swim spa for this summer, and then I'm going to work on burying those power lines. So that should be cool too. I had to stop because I heard an echo in my living room, which is okay, Mom. You don't need to turn it off. She can listen to how I'm using my voice and tell me what in the world I'm doing wrong. I guess I could just sing to you all because that doesn't hurt. But when I speak so low in my voice, I end up getting a little scratchy, scratchy. Okay, next highlight, and I see Ian Sisk is in our live stream today. It's you, Ian. On his way home, he stopped by his family land and decided it's time. It's time to just go for it with the family land and homesteading and getting it set up and doing everything he needs to do along that lines, right? And we will see what happens from here, but I was pretty excited that Ian was inspired to go for it because that's one of the best things to see coming out of the workshop is when people are like, I think I want to do a thing, but I don't know. And then they go for it. And sometimes they don't end up doing exactly what they say they're going to do at the workshop that year, but they do something and they come back. And often they come back as a speaker eventually when they make progress on their project. Okay, John Pugliano and Meshtastic was another big highlight from the spring workshop. And he was talking about ham radio and communications. And then what ended up happening is people finally understood like the whole Meshtastic world, and you can buy these devices and just like plop them up on your house and tap into a whole network. And it's an alternative form of communication. So understanding how it works and why it matters, I think, was a big eye-opener at the spring workshop. My next highlight for the spring workshop, and for those of you who are there in the comments, you are more than welcome to just plop in your ones because I'll share yours as well. It's Glenn's Hamburgers. So I do most of the pre-cooking of the food for the workshop. And I had intended to make the hamburgers in advance so that Glenn and Kiri's first day there would be super easy. They just have the hamburger patties and just go. But that was another thing I ran out of time for. And my choice was like, go buy hamburger pucks or have defrosted meat and say, Glenn, guess what you get to do? You get to make 50 hamburgers. Have fun with that. And give him a smile. And I chose the second option, knowing that, worst case scenario, we just cook all the bratwurst that I had, and that would be that. So he made his famous hamburgers with the spicing that he likes to use, and they were delicious. And they were gone by the end of that first dinner. In fact, that first dinner, usually we have about maybe 25, 30% of the people from the workshop at. There were more people at that first dinner than usual. And I know like at Jack's workshop, it's not really a dinner. It's just a arrival and he has some bratwurst out. We actually try to do a dinner because you can't just run around the corner here to, the nearest Jack in the Box or something and get some fast food, and the grocery store is not close. And so I like to have enough food on that first day where people can get, what they get enough to eat and they're not like starving in their tent. And then we also, our first breakfast is usually a bigger breakfast because it's same reason. You can't just run out to Waffle House from my house very easily. So, um, yeah, those hamburgers are great. And we will see what happens next year. We'll see. Um, the next highlight I want to talk about is another attendee, Gavin, who came in from Canada. And if you were up in the morning and you had your eyes wide open, you would see Gavin walking around the holler with his binoculars. And if you stopped to talk to him long enough, you'd find out what he was doing was looking at birds. So he was a bird watcher. So he wandered through the holler, checking out all the different birds we had here. I didn't actually catch up with him at the end to see all of the birds he saw, but I did enjoy a lot of the conversations with him. And I'm sure he would have let you look through his binoculars had you seen it. So he was doing that. That was a fun one. That was a new one. We haven't had a bird watcher before. Okay. Next highlight from the spring workshop is Jack Spirko's bioreactor breakthrough. We did the bioreactor build on the last day. We were originally going to do it Friday, but then it rained like crazy. And the good news is we were in the classroom for most of the rain. So we didn't get, and it kept like every time we needed to walk from the classroom to the where we have meals, it would break. So I almost didn't notice it was raining Friday because I was in the classroom the whole time when it was raining. But we delayed the bioreactor build till Saturday. And that, that was like the double-edged sword, right? Because at the end of the day, Saturday, some people like to get on the road, eat fast, but most people didn't. So a lot of us were there for that build. And I had gotten a list of supplies from Jack and showed it to Tactical and some of the things we already had on hand, like fencing. And I didn't like cop to that Jack said 3-foot fencing, but what we have is 4-foot fencing and 4-foot weed cloth, and we were supposed to get 3-foot weed cloth. And so he was, Jack was like, Jack noticed. He's like, well, I can do one of two things. We can do a 4-foot bioreactor, and it will be different in these ways, or we can cut it down. And I was like, whatever you choose is fine. So he decided to do the taller reactor. And then as he was starting to teach it, and he had a volunteer who was willing to cut things down, he decided to cut it back down to a 3-foot reactor for the reason that if you do a 4-foot reactor, you have to lift everything up higher, right? And then because he didn't have to cut each thing by himself down, because we had, lots of, many hands make light work sort of thing, they cut it down, but we still had 4-foot weed cloth, which worked out great because you could like fold it over the side and it wasn't constantly falling in. And he's like, well, now I'm going to do 3-foot reactors with 4-foot weed cloth. So that was the breakthrough we helped spark by getting the wrong materials for Jack. And that demo went great. We did biochar with him early on, and then we used that biochar in the bioreactor on Saturday. So everything worked out smashingly. Another highlight of the spring workshop was all about the community. People understood that I might be a little low on eggs for this one, and a lot of eggs showed up to the workshop. We had turkey eggs from Valerie, we had duck eggs from Andy, we had duck eggs from Hofgrid Homestead, and we got all of that done so that we'd have extra eggs. And that's because when you do Scotch eggs, you also use eggs. And then you need the eggs for the breakfasts. And then if you have anything that needs eggs that you're cooking, it's more eggs. So the eggs worked out great. In fact, I ended up with lots of eggs after the workshop because the ducks actually decided to get off their butts and start giving me eggs too. So we were getting about a dozen eggs a day while people were there. And so I ended up with about 60 eggs left at the end of the workshop, which never happens. But it was really fun to tap into everything. Homestead Glamour says, I got to hand shovel fallen leaves, and I felt very important. That was during the bioreactor compost demo. Okay. The next highlight was late night wrestling matches. You know who you are? I won't name names this time, but I understand there was some sparring after hours and showing each other cool moves. And we'll just leave it at that. The next was all the sea sponges that showed up. Eric came out of Florida and he brought a bunch of sea sponges. He likes to comb the beach just to, bring for people to take home. And I have one here. Those were pretty cool. He had some other awesome shells too, like really pretty shells from Florida that you could use for decorating. And, that brings up that we had a whole section where people were selling things like Homestead Glamour had some of her, I think some of her body butter and other like beard oil and stuff like that. And Patrick Rorman had knives and his daughter had soap and Carrie Brown had plants. And I don't even know what all was out there ultimately. So it's a different mix of things every time. Last year we had a lot of pottery, but the Zettelmoyers were not here this year. So hopefully they'll be back next year. We will see. Another fun highlight that I did not expect to be on the list was pocket door rescues. I have put a pocket door in my second bathroom, which was just barely finished enough to be usable during the spring workshop. And more than one time, because I have not trimmed out the pocket door, which means you can open it too far, it came off the track when somebody was in the bathroom and they had to be rescued. But the real memorable one was that one person got stuck in the bathroom who shall not be named, who is a prepper. And they decided to handle it solo and he got out. So mad respect for you. Glad you could figure out how to get out of the pocket door and that you are a good analytical thinker. By next year, we will have that trimmed out and then people won't get stuck in there. But it's always fun to be in a group of people and be like, could somebody let me out? So that was fun. And then finally, like the most memorable part for me of this year's spring workshop was you, the participants, because the energy and the way that the group just sort of gelled from the very beginning was amazing. And it came together. You know what just happened? Oh no. I'm so sad. Anyway, I'm needing to do something, guys, because there was a whole thing. Is the audio still working? I just want to make sure. Just tell me in the comments, because I just had a whole thing happen here on my screen. And that's not really fun. And now I'm having to do a whole thing on my screen. So can you still hear me? Okay, 5x5. Good. Okay, so the most important thing were the participants because they really gelled well. And you may wonder why that's important. Well, it's because the connections that get made at the spring workshop go on for years afterwards. And part of it's the hijinks that we get into. Part of it is the project ideas that we come up with. And part of it is just when you get the right energy mix, there is an acceleration of concepts and ideas that come together. And that is actually the reason I do the spring workshop, right? Is that cohesion and that vibing, if you will, that we get. And a lot of times it'll take a day or two for that to come together. But this year, day one, every single person showed up not just to learn, but to help each other figure out the next chapters in their lives. And even, there's always the shy people and the outgoing people. Even our shy participants, they took a little while to warm up, but they warmed up and got to know, different people. And that's what happens when you're around doers. And the difference between a doer and a taker is just miles apart. And a lot of events have people going there expecting to be taken care of. But at our event, what we have is a group of people who want to take care of each other and themselves. And that made all the difference this year. So that was pretty freaking phenomenal. So if you didn't come to the workshop and you're like, man, I wish I could have gone there, I have a question for you. Why haven't you taken your shot? What has kept you from going? Is it the money? Is it the time? Is it because you're a little bit afraid of people? Or do you just think you're not good enough? If it's that last one, take a good hard look at that, because you are good enough. You deserve to build your dream, and you can do it. It may look different when you get there. Like, everybody has a dream, and you start building your dream and you learn as you go, and it may look different when you get there. But if you don't start working on that dream, you'll never get anywhere. And you won't learn the things you do that make you adjust your dream to look different, but you will go further if you just start. It takes hard work, it takes a strong community, and it takes a doer. And if you're not sure if you're a doer, that's a decision you make, man. And getting around a bunch of other doers helps you see the benefit of doing. And I think that alone is the best reason to go to any of these things that we put on. So hopefully you'll take this year and think, if I want to go next year, I have to think now about going next year and make it happen. Because that's how you take your shot, guys. If you like the show and want to support the work we're doing here, you can do it in 2 ways. 1, get your coffee at hollowroast.com. 2, consider becoming a member. Head over to livingfreeintennessee.com. And if you are going to be at the Midwest Preparedness Project or Exit and Build Land Summit, be sure to come find me. And, like, if we haven't met before, introduce yourself. But also come say hi, just to say hi, because I like to meet all y'all. Anyway, with that, guys, go out, make it a great week.